Just a second.
Excuse me. Okay. My name is Larry James. My company is Speak with Larry. And today we have a guest by the name of Dawn Jordan Jones. And her moniker says she's designing growth strategies to attract the people you are called to serve. Is that correct, Dawn?
Absolutely.
All
Absolutely.
right. Well, welcome to the Speak with Larry show. I would
Thank
like for
you.
you
Thank you
to
for the opportunity.
introduce who you are and what you do to my audience, if you don't mind.
Great. No problem. My name is Dawn Jordan Jones, and I am a brand activation strategist. Essentially, what I do is assist companies in not only creating and developing their brand, but then activating it through marketing, web design, logo design, graphic design, and social media platforms, as well as on-site events and activities.
Gotcha. And who would be your target audience for that type of activity?
Typically, my clients are clients that are either medium to large size businesses. I do work with some small businesses, but typically they're not at the brand activation stage. I additionally and do a lot of work with churches and ministries.
Gotcha. I was thinking because I think on the end of that it said faith-based.
Yes.
Okay. So most of your audience are people in church.
The majority of the people or clients that I do work with, I think just because that's the majority of the people that I'm around on a regular basis. So, yes.
Okay,
So,
great. Would you say that that's your passion?
Absolutely.
Okay. So I was talking to a guy on the last interview, and I was telling him when we were discussing, and the idea of passion came up because my company teaches you how to set up the foundation of your online business, right?
Mm-hmm.
So my target audience are what we call the baby boomer generation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, what would you think the disconnect with that would be?
The disconnect would be a lot of baby boomers, because I'm at the tail end of the baby boomers, I guess the front end. At what a lot of challenges are with some of them just are not technologically savvy.
Right.
Not knowing or understanding how to get online, what to do online. And that's what I'm finding with a lot of the churches that I'm working with, especially now with everything that's going on. I spent the entire weekend working with churches, either getting them up online for streaming or getting their online platform up for giving, because a lot of churches just did not have that in place. So I provide those resources to get them up and running.
Great. Because that's been my issue too, and I think it's because we didn't grow up in that era. Because I'm also in that era, and for the clients that I'm able to reach, like hands-on, like locally, I can actually go to them, and it doesn't really take that long. It's just kind of repetition. How did you learn about computers? Were you kind of like thrust into it through a job?
I would say yes. It was probably back 1988. I worked at my first job on a computer. I had never done it before. And so I just got in, and I'm one of those type of people that I'll get in, figure something out, then figure out a shortcuts, and then I'll be able to train people later. So I'm pretty technologically savvy. It doesn't take me long to figure something out. So that's something
I was thinking about like our ancestors, like during the slave time, and a lot of the inventions that were designed and that came up with. And I was thinking to myself, you know what? Those slaves had to come up with a lot of those inventions because they were actually doing the work. So you're going to make it as easy and as efficient as possible, right?
Absolutely.
So I was like, that's when I started to realize our people are really geniuses, on a real level. Because what I'm doing right now is I'm studying different podcasts to kind of mimic in my mind, so that I can get the process the way I want it. Because I want it to be really, really casual, because I like really casual things, but I like intellectual conversations, right? So have you ever heard of a guy named Talib Kweli?
I have.
Yeah, he's got a podcast show called The People's Party. He has a lot of like I would consider rappers or people who are in that industry, right? And these people are really intelligent. When I'm listening to them, I'm like, wow, these guys are super smart. But who would think that if you weren't exposed to it? listened to one episode he had, and he was talking to I think it was Jada Kiss. Somebody about, have you know that name? Jada Kiss. Okay.
I was in radio for 23 years.
Oh, you were?
Yes, I was in radio on the sales side, on the sales and event marketing side. So pretty familiar with a lot of artists.
But he said Black people have a lot of access to white people's world, whereas white people don't really have a lot of access to the Black people's world. Would you agree with that?
I would agree with that. I would agree with that.
Because we don't really let them in, right?
Absolutely. I think it goes back to possibly a situation where we haven't had our own for that long.
Right.
And so we want to protect it, especially since there is so much genius and knowledge and intellect within our community. We don't want that to get out because we're afraid that either one, they'll take it and exploit it, or take it and say it's theirs. And so I think that's one reason why.
Gotcha. Getting back to the passion really quickly. I always say that once you're able to find out what your passion truly is for you, and I always say that we're all individually wrapped. So my passion is going to be totally different than yours, although it may look the same. But the way I feel about it is going to be different. So once you're able to actually create a lifestyle for yourself, doing what it is that you have a passion for, what's better than that?
Absolutely nothing.
Even if you're not making money, right, when you start.
Absolutely nothing. I think they always say if you love what you do, then you really never work a day in your life. And yet, one thing I've kind of evolved to where my business is now, to where I've finally found the thing that I love working with. I enjoy doing it the most. I am making a good living at it, and there's potential for major growth and upside. So
that's great. See, it doesn't get any better than that. So,
no, it doesn't.
But so many people have a issue with, like a lot of my clients that want me to help them identify how to find their passion. How would you suggest a person identify what they have a passion for?
Well, I think that it goes back to what are the things that you enjoy doing. Now, I know the one thing, if anybody were to ask me, what are your favorite things to do? I love to read. I'm just now getting back to being able to find that time to be able to read. I love to cook. I mean, absolutely love to cook. Okay. And then I can sit up and design till 2, 3 in the morning. Actually, last week I was up till 4:30 in the morning. And I looked up, I'm like, I need to go to bed. But the current circumstances, my son's out of school, and I work from a home office, so I didn't have to be, and I didn't have any appointments the next morning. So it was like, okay, I slept in. But I think it's, if you find something you truly enjoy doing, like the other thing that I love to do, I love to cook.
Okay.
But I don't know if that's something I'd want to do all the time to be able to earn a living, because it really requires a lot of you from a physical standpoint.
True.
But from a designing standpoint, that's something that's really relatively, I'm learning things on every day and new techniques and better ways to do things and shortcuts. And so it's an ever growing and ever changing business. And that's exciting for me because I'm still learning and growing, even though I've been successful doing what I've done so far.
Gotcha. How much of doing what you do you actually charge to teaching opposed to just actually doing? Is that a high percentage, would you say?
As far as, do I teach my clients?
What you're doing, are you educating in the process as well?
I educate. I think what I do is not educating on the exact things I do, but I make my clients knowledgeable of the resources that are available to them or the options that are available to them. So I would say, and it's depending on the lifestyle of the client or the life cycle of where they are in their business. Like I've got one client that was brand new. She's an HR professional. She decided, she took the John Maxwell, she's a John Maxwell speaker and coach. And so now she's branching into doing that full time. And so she didn't have any aspect of, I don't know what to do. I don't know what social media to set up. I don't know what to have on my website. And so I walked her through that process while we were in the process of building everything out for her. Gotcha. But then I have other clients who are extremely knowledgeable that it's just going in and kind of fine tuning and tweaking what they're currently doing.
Interesting. Well, as we get older in life, I look at things from a different perspective, especially when it comes to the entrepreneurial mindset. So,
Mm-hmm.
how much impact do you think that it requires for someone beginning to be able to identify that they don't have an entrepreneurial mindset, or they're not really ready to do what they want to do? And how would you suggest that they work on getting their mind structured for? Because it's not like a job at all.
Mm-mm.
If you don't make money, you don't eat. It's like that.
Right.
So
I was telling somebody that exactly today.
yeah.
I think I look at it from a standpoint of, and I look at back where I was. Maybe if you had said to me 10 years ago, I would be doing this full time and it would be where I would be, I would have been like, nope, that's okay. Because I thoroughly enjoyed the career I was in, was making a great amount of money. I was having very good success from on a national level or a national recognition level.
Mm-hmm.
So I never thought I would ever leave radio.
Right.
Because I just had done it for so long.
Did you actually leave, or did they kick you out, or
There was some downsizing and so it's just kind of, but it was time. I'm a firm believer, because I am a woman of faith. I'm a firm believer that had to happen in order for me to be where I am now. Because if I hadn't, I'd still be in radio, and
Right,
I don't think the opportunities would have opened up for me to be doing what I'm doing right now.
Okay.
So I do believe that when you get to a point that you think you might want to, I read a lot. There's tons of books out there about how to set yourself up for success. There's tons of podcasts. There's tons of free webinars. So if somebody is thinking about making that transition into, maybe if you're working full time and then trying to transition to full-time entrepreneurship, it's not anything to take lightly. Because it's me, and if it's just you and you've got a rich uncle somewhere, then hey, go for it. But if it's you and your livelihood and your family's livelihood that you've got to be very careful about, then you've got to put things in place and have a plan in place. Because there are times when, like one of my coaches says, some days it's $100,000 a month, and the next month it's nothing, just because of the ebb and flow of the business. If you have multiple income streams, which is always recommended when you are an entrepreneur, then those are things that kind of hold things even for you. Right. So that's what that would be my recommendation. Read a lot, learn a lot about what's coming and what to expect, so you're not blindsided with, oh geez. And I was very fortunate that I am surrounded by a lot of entrepreneurs that I can go pick their brain. One of my oldest friends I've known since I was 6 has his own business, and so he's kind of like a big brother. So I'm kind of like, Eric, what do I do? Right. And he's very, very knowledgeable in just the nuts and bolts of it.
And to piggyback on that, which I believe is absolutely necessary, on a scale of 1 to 10, how important do you think a coach or a mentor is to that process?
A 15.
15.
It is imperative to have a coach or a mentor. One, because if you've got a good one and they're genuine in wanting to help you, they're going to help you avoid a lot of pitfalls. Absolutely. That's where, like I said, I'm surrounded. I've got a really, really close friend that owns 5 businesses, and he is constantly feeding into me, don't do this, do this. From a financial standpoint, he can go in and retool a business and, save them money and put them on a path to success very, very quickly. And I've got, my branding coach and she's been in business for herself over 15 years, and she's able to kind of help you with the marketing and the positioning and those things. You need probably multiple different coaches for multiple different aspects of your business if you're trying to really really grow your business. If you're just trying to just get by, but if you're trying to really invest and grow your business, it's imperative to have a mentor. Imperative.
I agree totally. When you mentioned earlier about the different ways there are to learn nowadays, technology has made actually what we do very, very simple once you understand the basics, right? And it actually becomes a lot of fun, because there's a lot of things that will cross in your pathway that like when you read a book, a lot of times you got to read the whole book to get what you can get really quickly in a video, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that process allows you to get more information. And I always say that once you begin the process, which is really like one of the most difficult times I have with sharing with people how to do that, is I can explain everything to them, but they will not take that first step. You know, is that fear, or is that just that's not really what they want to do? Or
I think the biggest bulk of it is fear, because you don't know what's on the other side of it.
Uh-huh.
And while someone can sit here and tell you what to do, and you can watch YouTube videos all day, I think YouTube was probably the best thing that could have ever happened to any type of person in any entrepreneur area, because you can go on, quick fix, figure out how to do it, and move on.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you can watch all that, but until you take that step of faith into, okay, this is what I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I had that challenge because I had always, up until last September, had a full-time job. And so it was like, there was that,
right?
Pardon me?
And you were in your comfort zone.
Very much so.
Okay.
Very much so.
Uh-huh.
Making great money, working for an amazing company, having a lot of fun. Part of my responsibility as a key account manager is I got to travel, and about 30 of my accounts were in Texas, and that's like one of my favorite states. So I got to go to Dallas and Houston all the time. So I was having the time of my life.
Wow.
And there was a reduction in work and a reduction in workforce, and my position was eliminated in the office here in Indianapolis. And so it was like, okay. And it was one of those things where now is the time, because it was something I was planning on doing in a year. I was going full time in my business anyway. So I was like, okay, now's the time. And sometimes, and being, like I said, being a person of faith, sometimes God is preparing you to go. And when you take that step, he takes 5.
Right.
And that is what I've seen almost every single day since September 25th, when I got the news that my position was eliminated.
Mm-hmm. One of the ways I like to share with people when they getting back to identifying what your passion is, and tell me whether or not you think this makes sense. If I wanted to know, because first of all, I really have a problem with people not knowing who they are. You know, you have to know who you are, because if you don't know who you are, you don't know what you will allow and what you won't allow in your world. But I say, just imagine if you walk into a bookstore or a library, right? As soon as you walk inside the front door, what section is kind of pulling you in that direction, right? Is it home and garden? Is it self-development, personal development? What section do you want to go to first? And I say, I always start there, because if you start there, once you begin the process, and I'm a firm believer in processes. You have to set up processes to get better. You can't just
Absolutely.
You have to be consistent, because that's what makes you successful, is the consistency over time. Because even if you got it the first week, you wouldn't be able to handle it, because you wouldn't know what you did. And you wouldn't really understand all the other moving parts that are necessary to maintain it, because it's not so much acquiring it, it's maintaining it over a period of time,
Absolutely.
That's where the hard part comes in, because the entrepreneurial world is kind of like for lack of a better phrase, I'm going to say kind of cutthroat. You'll get people that, smile on your face and, give you good news, get you really excited, and then let you down. And no care about that. I'm like, wow, that's bizarre. But, that's why you have to know where you want to go, and you have to begin. I always say begin with baby steps. Would you recommend that as well?
I think you need to begin with the end in mind. You need to know where you want to go ultimately, and then develop a plan to get there. Sometimes baby steps are necessary to just get started, but I also think you need to have a plan of, I work very much better with the plan, with defined deadlines and things that need to happen within those. And then I devise steps that I need to go to make, steps I need to be, or targets I need to hit in order to make my goals.
That makes sense.
So I think that's very critical. I think a lot of people, when they're looking at the things that they're trying to do and accomplish, if they don't have a plan in mind and know where they're trying to go, it's like just getting in the car and driving with no destination.
Another guy I was listening to on the People's Party goes by the name of Bum B. You've probably heard of him too, right?
That one I have not heard of.
Bun B. He's in the entertainment business. He's a rapper too, but he was like from the 70s, I believe, or the
Okay.
80s maybe. But anyway, he had a situation where someone broke in his home, and him and his
Oh.
wife was at home, and he had to shoot the guy, but you know he didn't really. He missed him, but he had to shoot him. The guy got arrested. But one of the quotes he said while he was on that show, he said, "Proximity is the key to life." How do you feel about that?
I think in looking at that and trying to think that through, I think when you look at what you're close to, and I look at proximity, like the things that you're close to, that could be the key, or I believe that you're brought near or around people or around situations to help you grow to the next level.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would agree with that. It's got to be, I guess, refined a little bit to understand what that proximity is. It could be a
Well,
book,
like you just explained about you and the guy that you can call about, he can tell you how to do certain business aspects. You have a close relationship with him, right? Had you not had that relationship, there would be a void there, right? So you probably do things for him as well, right? Exchange ideas or whatever. Yeah, because I believe that that's necessary. I believe you grow based on the people you surround yourself with.
Absolutely.
And if you surround yourself with people where you're the smartest person, then you need to add people.
Yeah, you never want to be the smartest person in the room.
That's what I say too, because there's a
and when you're around people who think they are, I leave that room.
Yeah, me too. Because one reason is you're always teaching, you're never learning, right? And I believe that it's good to share with other people what it is that you do, so that you can become more familiar with it. I'm basically talking about when people begin this process, right? Because a lot of times I find that what's really lacking is their confidence. One of my favorite subjects is personal development. I believe it's very important that you constantly work on yourself. Because when you're working on yourself, you'll, I'm an author too. And I was going to write a book one time called The Day Our Paths Cross, because once our paths cross, your life has changed forever, right? Because like now you can say, and I've never met you, but I can see you and you can see me, but you can never say, I don't know Larry James anymore in life. You know, so regardless of what happens in your life, if someone ever comes up and say, hey, do you know Larry James? That name will register because of this process right here, right? And sometimes there's a reason people's paths cross. And a lot of times it's because it's like you were talking about the religious or the spiritual aspect of it. It's meant for that person to help you in some way. You know, if it's not necessarily entrepreneurially, it could be something that you're dealing with within yourself.
Right.
I might have a story, because stories are very important in life, you know. And I believe that storytellers are a blessing to the world, because they can kind of take a situation and make that situation better. You know, especially when you don't really see it out for yourself, right? Were you ever a speaker?
I'm in the process of, I've done some speaking and working on developing.
How did that make you feel when you're speaking?
Really nervous, because I used to be very, very nervous getting up in front of people, to the point of I'd be sick the night before and nervous. But then every single time that I've gotten up to speak, it's been speaking about a topic that I'm extremely familiar with. And so once I do start the speaking, I get into a zone and a flow, and it's starting to be easier. So
right. And what's so amazing?
I'm pushing. That's another that my coach is pushing me outside of my comfort zone for that.
That's hard for a lot of people. Because what's amazing is that you don't realize that the people really want you to do well. You know, but you're inside your head.
Absolutely.
And that's what's really. But that's. I think the number is like 60 or 70% of people are afraid of public speaking.
I would agree. I would think that's a pretty accurate number.
It's a high number, yeah. And when I first started my system, I just passed 10 years in February, in January actually. So as a speaker, I experienced things because I had to go to Toastmasters to get to the
Mm-hmm.
beginning process because it was so uncomfortable for me, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But over time, Toastmasters allows you to do things repetitiously, and you get kind
Absolutely.
of comfortable with the process. And then, like you said, knowing your material helps a lot too.
Absolutely.
Uh-huh. But I don't really recommend speaking as a part of people's beginning point in an online entrepreneurial business because there's too much for that because like we talked about, the fear is so great on that level. Unless you enjoy speaking, some people have, but they're natural at it.
Mm-hmm.
That certain things just come naturally for people. Now, a lot of people that I know, they don't really like reading. So when I say you don't like reading, I say, well, how do you get your information? YouTube or Facebook or some platform like that. And I think that's a good thing too. But I also believe you should read too, shouldn't you?
Absolutely.
Yeah, you have to be able to digest things in different ways or process things in different ways so that you can have a real perspective on what's going on. Because people will trick you. You know what I'm saying? Like they say, if you want to hide things from Black people, put it in a book, right? Because they're not going to read the book. But how long have you been in your business since you quit the radio or the radio station you were maybe?
Well, I've been out of radio for 23 years, but I mean, that essentially was marketing anyway. So if we're talking all the time that I spent in marketing and this, were probably almost over 30 years. But been solo in my business as far as established as 2911 Media for 5 years.
Okay.
5.5.
Did you start as a side business doing that while you were doing that?
Well, how it started was I was always that person that people come to, oh, can you make this look good? So, back in the 80s, it was okay, or actually 90s, I was doing it in a Word document and making it look good with clip art. Okay. And then, moved to PowerPoint, and then moved to doing things in Photoshop and doing some things in Illustrator. And so I was always that person where I could look at something and kind of make it look better because I'm knowing what, the marketing background and the advertising background and working with businesses all those years in radio. I know what people are looking for that's going to bring them in. And so sometimes I'll see logos that'll make me cringe. Like today, a friend of mine showed me a website of a friend of his, and he's just like, take a look at this. What do you think? And I was just like, okay. He's like, I'm going to give him your number because you got to help him. And I don't mind helping because it just, what he was trying to convey, if I went to the website, I was confused.
Gotcha.
The company was confusing. The graphics on the website were confusing. The typos were even more confusing. And so those are the type of things that I help clients with, and them understanding when you're trying to get business and you have somebody has a discriminating eye, and especially since you're not the only one that does what you do. Right. You have to always step up and put your best foot forward. And if I'm scrolling through, especially if I'm doing a Google search and I'm looking for something, I'm going to probably go to whatever's on the front page. And if I see something that's just a little off kilter, I won't bother.
Right.
And so that's part of what, in learning and doing that and then sharing that, then I started thinking, wait a minute, because everybody's like, oh, can you do this? And then when I'd get on boards, they'd put me on the marketing committee, or I'd be director of marketing on the boards. And I'm just like, wait a minute, I could get paid for this. So then that's when I started just, evolve my own company and just started doing things. I've been very, 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 very blessed that to date, I only have one client that's not a referral. Everybody else was referrals, or people that knew me well enough and knew what I was doing, that, hey, I'm getting ready to start this business. I'm going to do this. Can you help? And so I'm just been very blessed.
Have you ever thought about writing a book?
I actually have 3 in the works. Yeah, 3 in the works. I had one that I was going to work on, that I'd been working on. It's about halfway done. And then with the shift with my business, in wanting to work more with churches, and seeing a lot of churches just are so far behind on where they need from a marketing and a branding standpoint, and being up to speed. And like this whole coronavirus thing is bringing it to the forefront for a lot of churches.
Wow. Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, I want to write this book to be able to show them here's why you're losing membership. Here's a solution, and here are the steps to fix it. And then when I was at a wellness retreat in February in Panama, we got stranded on a tree while we were ziplining 175 feet up in the middle of the Panamanian jungle for 2.5 hours. Wow. And so there were a lot of lessons I took away from that with regard to teamwork and how people deal when faced with challenges, and basically just the proverbial stop and smell the roses, because I think we go so fast all the time. That was 2.5 hours. We didn't have a choice.
Right.
We had to stop. So I'm working on
that
as well.
Huh? Were you terrified? Or?
I was not. I mean, and I'm not a queen of heights, but I was there with people that there were 4 people that came from our group together. So there was 3 other people. One person is a 30-year retired fireman, like super into safety. I knew I was harnessed in and double latched onto the tree, so I couldn't fall off. And so it was just a matter of you going to get to me before I get hungry. And the 2.5 hours we were up there, we missed lunch. I wasn't hungry, wasn't thirsty, so, it was an eye-opening experience.
That's great. That's great. So it's coming just about time to shut it down. But one of the things I like to ask people from the beginning is, how did you grow up? Did you grow up like with a mother and a father? Did you grow up, did you go to the same school all your 12 years? Or how was that for you?
My parents were married until I was 9. And I'm a daddy's girl. Okay. My mother got custody. They divorced, but we stayed in the same city. Saw my dad on regular visitation, but my dad also coached at my grade school, so I got to see him almost every day. Then we moved, and I switched schools, which was like took me about 1 semester to adjust, and then I was off and running. And then I ended up going to the same high school my dad had graduated from. So that was kind of cool to be at the high school that he had graduated from years before.
What state was this in?
Illinois.
Okay.
I was born and raised in Peoria, Illinois. And then after that left, went away to school, came back home, worked, ultimately moved to North Carolina, where I was married. And that's where I really had the bulk of 14 years of my radio career was in North Carolina. Gotcha. And then I relocated back here back to Indiana 11 years ago to be closer to my family and my sister and my nieces. And
Gotcha. Very interesting. Okay. Well, listen, Dawn, it's been a pleasure talking with you. I hope you enjoyed it as well.
I did. Thank you very much for the invitation.
Do you do these quite a bit, or you get asked to do interviews quite a bit?
It's kind of hit and miss. It'll be like a long string of a whole bunch, and then it'll be a drought for a minute or so. So,
gotcha. What do you think about LinkedIn? Is that working pretty well for you?
I have not maximized it. That's something I probably will start doing. But I've been, like I said, I've been very, very busy and fortunate that I haven't had to really get in there. But it's something I'll probably, because I do have quite a few connections. So once I get some new things launched, it may be something I delve into. But I utilize Facebook. Actually happens to be a better curator for my target market.
Interesting. Okay, well, listen, if you would like to leave your name and your email address or how people can contact you, now is the time.
The email address is Dawn at 2, 9, 11 media.net. That's Dawn at 2911media.net. I am everywhere across social media at 11 media. So that's 2911 media.
Okay, great. And the way I always like to end my shows is share with someone else what I've shared with you. Thank you, Dawn.
Thank you.